Welcome, everyone. Thank you very much for coming together to immerse ourselves in this rich body of wisdom we call Torah. We are going to be reading through this week's Torah portion, Parshat Ki Teitzei, in the book of Deuteronomy. It begins in chapter 21 with verse 10. We'll read through the English translation of it. I'll share with you a focus study about it, and then we'll have our collaborative conversation about it. If you'd like to go ahead and join me in the recitation of the blessing, giving thanks for this moment, feel free to do so. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivonu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Thank you, God, for the opportunity to immerse ourselves in words, deeds, and relationships of Torah. I'll share with you the opening verses, and then I'll invite others to have an opportunity to read as well. When you take the field against your enemies, and Adonai your God delivers them into your power, and you take some of them captive, and you see among the captives a beautiful woman, and you desire her, and would take her to wife, you shall bring her into your house, and she shall trim her hair, pare her nails, and discard her captive's garb. She shall spend a month's time in your house, lamenting her father and mother. After that, you may come to her and possess her, and she shall be your wife. Then, should you no longer want her, you must release her outright. You must not sell her for money, since you had your will of her. You must not enslave her. If a man has two wives, one loved and the other unloved, and both the loved and unloved ones have borne him sons, but the first one born is the son of the unloved one, when he wills his property to his sons, he may not treat as firstborn the son of the loved one in disregard of the son of the unloved one who is older. Instead, he must accept the firstborn, the son of the unloved one, and allot to him a double portion of all he possesses, since he is the first fruit of his vigor. The birthright is his due. Richard, would you like to read at verse 18?
Thank you, Rabbi. Yes. If a man has a wayward and defiant son who does not heed his father or mother and does not obey them even after they discipline him, his father and mother shall take hold of him and bring him out to the elders of his town at the public place and his community. They shall say to the elders of his town, "This son of ours is disloyal and defiant. He does not heed us. He is a glutton and a drunkard." Thereupon the men of this town shall stone him to death.
Yeah.
Thus you will sweep out evil from your midst. All Israel will hear and be afraid. If the man is guilty of a capital offense and is put to death, and you impale him on a stake, you must not let his corpse remain on the stake overnight, but must bury him the same day. For an impaled body is an affront to God. You shall not defile the land that the Lord your God is giving you to possess.
Thank you. And Sherry, would you like to read a little bit? We're at the very start of chapter 22.
Thank you. If you see your fellow's ox or sheep gone astray, do not ignore it. You must take it back to your fellow. If your fellow does not live near you, or you do not know who he is, you shall bring it home, and it shall remain with you until your fellow claims it. Then you shall give it back to him. You shall do the same with his ass. You shall do the same with his garment. And so, too, shall you do with anything that your fellow loses and you find. You must not remain indifferent. If you see your fellow's ass or oxen fallen on the road, do not ignore it. You must help him raise it. Number 5, Steve?
Oh, I can't read this.
Yeah, it's pretty awful.
Yeah, even the other part about them. They don't treat the women equally to the men.
Okay, she'll have someone else read. Go ahead, Jim. Would you like to read? I think we're at verse 4.
But
5, thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi. A woman must not put on man's apparel, nor shall a man wear woman's clothing, for whoever does these things is abhorrent to Adonai your God. If along the road you chance upon a bird's nest in any tree or on the ground with fledglings or eggs, and the mother sitting over the fledglings or on the eggs, do not take the mother together with her young. Let the mother go and take only the young, in order that you may fare well and have a long life. When you build a new house, you shall make a parapet for your roof, so that you do not bring blood guilt on your house if anyone should fall from it. You shall not sow your vineyard and with a second kind of seed, else the crop from the seed you have sown and the yield of the vineyard may not be used. You shall not plow with an ox and an ass together. You shall not wear cloth combining wool and linen. You shall make tassels on the four corners of the garment with which you cover yourself.
Thank you so much, Jim. Mark, would you like to read a little bit? We're at verse 13.
Thank you, Rabbi. Excuse me. A man marries a woman and cohabits with her. Then he takes an aversion to her and makes up charges against her and defames her, saying, I married this woman, but when I approached her, I found that she was not a virgin. In such a case, the girl's father and mother shall produce the evidence of the girl's virginity before the elders of the town at the gate. And the girl's father shall say to the elders, I gave this man my daughter to wife, but he has taken an aversion to her. So he has made up charges, saying, I did not find your daughter a virgin. But here is the evidence of my daughter's virginity. And they shall spread out the cloth before the elders of the town. The elders of that town shall then take the man and flog him. And they shall fine him 100 shekels of silver and give it to the girl's father. For the man has defamed a virgin in Israel. Moreover, she shall remain his wife. He shall never have the right to divorce her. But if the charge proves true, the girl is found not to have been a virgin, then the girl shall be brought out to the entrance of her father's house, and the men of her town shall stone her to death, for she did a shameful thing in Israel, committing fornication while under her father's authority. Thus you will sweep away evil from your midst. If a man is found lying with another man's wife, both of them, the man and the woman with whom he lay, shall die. Thus you will sweep away evil from Israel.
Thank you, Mark. Norm, we're at verse 23, if you'd like to read a little bit.
In the case of a virgin who is engaged to someone, if another man comes upon her in town and lies with her, you shall take 2 of them out to the gates of the town and stone them to death. The girl, because she did not cry for help in the town, and the man, because he violated his neighbor's wife. Thus you will sweep away evil from your midst. But if the man comes upon the engaged girl in the open country, and the man lies with her by force, only the party who lay with her shall die. But you shall do nothing to the girl. The girl did not incur the death penalty. For this case is like that of one party attacking and murdering another. He came upon her in the open. Though the engaged girl cried for help, there was no one to save her. If a man comes upon a virgin who is not engaged and he seizes her and he lies with her, and they are discovered, the party who lay with her shall pay the girl's father 50 shekels of silver, and she shall be his wife. Because he had violated her, he can never have the right to divorce her.
Thank you, Norm. So we're continuing to read through our Torah portion before we get to our discussion. And so now we're at the very start of chapter 23. And David and Susan, would you like to read a little bit?
Yeah,
Thank you, Rabbi.
thank you, Rabbi. No householder shall marry his father's former wife so as to remove his father's garment. No man whose testes are crushed or whose member is cut off shall be admitted into the congregation of Adonai. No one misbegotten shall be admitted into the congregation of Adonai. No descendant of such, even in the 10th generation, shall be admitted into the congregation of Adonai. No Ammonite or Moabite shall be admitted into the congregation of Adonai. No descendant of such, even in the 10th generation, shall ever be admitted into the congregation of Adonai, because they did not meet you with food and water on your journey after you left Egypt, and because they hired Balaam, son of Beor, from Pethor of Aram Harim, to curse you. But your God Adonai refused to heed Balaam. Instead, your God Adonai turned the curse into a blessing for you. For your God Adonai loves you. You shall never concern yourself with their welfare or benefit as long as you live.
You shall not abhor an Edomite, because he's your brother, and shall not abhor an Egyptian, because you were an alien in his land. Third generations who will be born to them, they may come into Hashem's community. When you go out encamped against enemies, you shall be watchful against any bad thing. If there will be among you a man who is not pure by a night occurrence, then he shall go outside the camp. You shall not come inside the camp. And it shall be toward evening, he shall wash in water. And when the sun sets, he shall come inside the camp. And you shall have a location outside the camp, and you shall go out there outside, and you shall have a spade among your equipment. And it shall be that when you sit outside, that you shall dig with it, and you shall go back and cover what comes out of you. Because Hashem, your God, is going within your camp to rescue you and to put your enemies in front of you, so your camp shall be holy. So he won't see an exposure of something in you and run back from you. You shall not turn over to his master a slave who will seek deliverance with you from his master. He shall live with you among you in the place that he will choose in one of your gates, where it is good for him. You shall not persecute him. There shall not be a sacred prostitute from the daughters of Israel, and there shall not be a sacred prostitute from the sons of Israel. You shall not bring the price of a prostitute or the cost of a dog to the house of Hashem your God for any vow, because the two of them are both an offensive thing to Hashem.
Thank you so much. And then let me invite Robert, if you'd like to read. We're at verse 20.
Yes, thank you so much. I think mine says 19, but I think it's the
Go
same.
ahead, please. Thank you.
Thou shalt not lend upon any usury to thy brother, usury of money, usury of victuals, usury of anything that is lent upon usury. Upon a stranger thou mayest lend upon usury, but unto thy brother thou shalt not lend upon usury. That the Lord thy God may bless thee in all that thou settest thine hand to, in the land whither thou goest to possess it. When thou shalt vow a vow unto the Lord thy God, thou shalt not slack to pay it, for the Lord thy God will surely require it of thee, and it would be sin in thee. But if thou shalt forbear to vow, it shall be no sin in thee. That which is gone out of thy lips thou shalt keep and perform, even a free will offering, according as thou hast vowed unto the Lord thy God, which thou hast promised with thy mouth. When thou comest unto thy neighbor's vineyard, then thou mayest eat grapes thy fill at thine own pleasure, but thou shalt not put any in thy vessel. When thou comest into the standing corn of thy neighbor, then thou mayest pluck the ears with thine hand, but thou shalt not move a sickle unto thy neighbor's standing corn.
Thank you so much, Robert. Catherine, we're at the very start of chapter 24, if you'd like to read.
Thank you, Rabbi. A man takes a wife and possesses her. She fails to please him because he finds something obnoxious about her. And he writes her a bill of divorcement, hands it to her, and sends her away from his house. She leaves his household and becomes the wife of another man. Then this latter man rejects her, writes her a bill of divorcement, hands it to her, and sends her away from his house. Or the man who married her last dies. Then the first husband who divorced her shall not take her to wife again, since she has been defiled. For that would be abhorrent to Adonai. You must not bring sin upon the land that Adonai your God is giving you as a heritage. When a man has taken a bride, he shall not go out with the army or be assigned to it for any purpose. He shall be exempt 1 year for the sake of his household, to give happiness to the woman he has married. A hand mill or an upper millstone shall not be taken in pawn, for that would be taking someone's life in pawn. If a man is found to have kidnapped a fellow Israelite, enslaving him or selling him, then that kidnapper shall die. Thus you will sweep out evil from your midst. In cases of a skin affection, be most careful to do exactly as the Levitical priests instruct you. Take care to do as I have commanded them. Remember what Adonai your God did to Miriam on the journey after you left Egypt.
Thank you, Catherine. Jay, we're at verse 10, if you'd like to read a little bit.
Thank you, Rabbi. When you make a loan of any sort to your countryman, you must not enter his house to seize his pledge. You must remain outside while the man to whom you made the loan brings the pledge out to you. If he's a needy man, you shall not go to sleep in his pledge. You must return the pledge to him at sundown, that he may sleep in his cloth and bless you, and it will be to your merit before Adonai your God. You shall not abuse a needy and destitute laborer, whether a fellow countryman or a stranger in one of the communities of your land. You must pay him his wages on the same day before the sun sets, for he is needy and urgently depends on it. Else he will cry to Hashem against you, and you will incur guilt. Parents shall not be put to death for children, nor children be put to death for parents. A person shall be put to death only for his own crime. You shall not subvert the rights of the stranger or the fatherless. You shall not take a widow's garment in pawn. Remember that you were a slave in Egypt, and that Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh, your God, redeemed you from there. Therefore do I enjoin you to observe this commandment. When you reap the harvest in your field and overlook a sheaf in the field, do not turn back to get it. It shall go to the stranger, the fatherless, and the widow, in order that Adonai your God may bless you in all your undertakings. When you beat down the fruit of your olive trees, do not go over them again. That shall go to the stranger, the fatherless, and the widow. When you gather the grapes of your vineyard, do not pick it over again. That shall go to the stranger, the fatherless, and the widow. Always remember that you were a slave in the land of Egypt. Therefore do I enjoin you to observe this commandment.
Thank you so much. Rose, we're at the very start of chapter 25, if you'd like to read a bit.
Thank you, Rabbi. When there is a dispute between two parties and they go to law, and a decision is rendered declaring the one in the right and the other in the wrong, if the guilty one is to be flogged, the magistrate shall have the person lie down and shall supervise the giving of lashes by count, as warranted by the offense. The guilty one may be given up to 40 lashes, but not more, lest being flogged further to excess, your peer be degraded before your eyes. You shall not muzzle an ox while it is threshing. When brothers dwell together and one of them dies and leaves no offspring, the widow of the deceased shall not become that of another party outside the family. Her husband's brother shall unite with her. He shall take her as his wife and perform the levir's duty. The first child that she bears shall be accounted to the dead brother, that his name may not be blotted out in Israel. But if that party does not want to take his brother's widow to wife, his brother's widow shall appear before the elders at the gate and declare, my husband's brother refuses to establish a name in Israel for his brother. He will not perform the duty of a levir. The elders of the town shall then summon him and talk to him. If he insists, saying, I do not want to take her, his brother's widow shall go up to him in the presence of the elders, pull the sandal off his foot, and spit in his face, and make this declaration. Thus shall be done to the man who will not build up his brother's house. And he shall go to in Israel by the name, the family of the unsandaled one.
Thank you so much. Linda, would you like to read a little bit? We're at verse 11.
Sure, Rabbi.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
thank you.
Okay. Oh, of course, it disappeared. Oh, dear. Whatever shall be done. I was reading along and now it's disappeared. I guess you'll have to go to someone else. I'm so sorry.
Okay. Let me conclude. I'll be your proxy, Linda. How's that?
Thank you, Rabbi.
If two men get into a fight with each other, and the wife of one comes up to save her husband from his antagonist, and puts out her hand and seizes him by his genitals, you shall cut off her hand. Show no pity. You shall not have in your pouch alternate weights, larger and smaller. You shall not have in your house alternate measures, a larger and smaller. You must have completely honest weights and completely honest measures if you are to endure long on the soil that Adonai your God is giving you. For everyone who does those things, everyone who deals dishonestly is abhorrent to Adonai your God. Remember what Amalek did to you on your journey after you left Egypt, how undeterred by fear of God, he surprised you on the march when you were famished and weary, and cut down all the stragglers in your rear. Therefore, when Adonai your God grants you safety from all your enemies around you, in the land that Adonai your God is giving you as a hereditary portion,
Right
you
there.
shall blot out the memory of Amalek from under heaven. Do not forget. That's our portion for the week, and I'd like to just share with you a focus study about it, and then we'll have our collaborative conversation about it. And as I looked at this week's portion, I was struck by the structural composition of it, how it is arranged. And it opens up with a series of laws, protocols, decrees that the Israelites are to follow when they enter into the land of promise. In fact, this Torah portion has more laws in it than any other portion in it. And I read that, and then I got to the end, this portion that I read as a proxy on behalf of Linda, which is so. Let me back up. So much there that's offered up in the way of these additional laws and decrees. I thought, my goodness, that's a lot to remember. And I was struck by how the setting is that the Israelites are ready. They're all packed up. They're ready to cross over and enter into the promised land. And here, kind of at this last moment, as they're finishing putting things on the camel and tying up all of their baggage, all of a sudden they get presented to them this whole other set of laws and decrees to remember. And so I had this sense of a kind of a frenzy this additional set of responsibilities that's being delivered to them. I thought, well, that's a lot to remember. And then when we get to the end, I was struck by the last verse is not so much about remembering, it's about having no memory. It's about not remembering. It's about blotting out a memory. And so I was struck by this tension that the portion creates at the front end between there's a lot to remember, and then at the end, and there's something profound to forget. So I was struck by this tension between remembering and forgetting. And so I was thinking a lot about the notion of remembering and also about forgetting. And so that brought me to the notion about memory. And when I was thinking about memory, I was realizing that the science about memory, well, let me back, we've had images about what constitutes memory ever since human beings have been alive. But mostly those images have to do with as if we're capable of storing in our minds, like file cabinets, data, which some of us are more skilled at retrieving perhaps than others. But what gets stored there in these kind of pre-modern notions, what gets stored there are clear bits of information. Okay? So the science about exploring memory is actually fairly recent, and it begins perhaps somewhere in the late 19th century, and it really doesn't take off until the mid 20th century. And there's a wonderful book written by Alison Winter, who was a historian of science and medicine. She taught at the California Institute of Technology and later at the University of Chicago. And she wrote a book called Memory, Fragments of a Modern History. And in that book, what she notes is that the modern sciences about dealing with memory emerged coincident with the development of new technologies for recording, transmitting, and recreating sounds and images. Photography, the phonograph, the moving image, all of those technologies developed between about 1850 and 1900. And some people picked up on those new technologies and used them as either metaphors for or models of how the human brain stores memory, like a camera or like a phonograph. Something is said, something is viewed, and it gets recorded, and that's kind of what our brain does. There are other scientists who are become skeptical about that as being a model for how the brain works in terms of recording and recalling images and sounds. And they began to say, well, that's exactly how it doesn't work. And so they began to explore the nature of memory. The same time period when these new technologies are being developed, when there are these kind of nascent explorations into the nature of memory, is exactly coincident with the development of a new art form called Impressionism. And one of the things that's remarkable about the Impressionists is the way that they broke with traditional art was traditional art, its aspiration was to utilize with great refinement and great detail that which has existed and, in a sense, that which has always existed. Traditional art was designed to present to us some kind of eternal, everlasting truth. And it was conveyed through paintings about either scenes from the Bible, scenes of great historic moments, scenes dealing with moments out of mythology, but they were designed to teach us something that was eternally true. So the Impressionists, contrary to presenting something that was
2519.
eternal and everlasting,
Yeah, to 24.
they intended to show us something that was ephemeral, transient, fleeting. And they did this a lot by showing us the impact that different light can have on how we perceive what is before us. So uh, one of the first exhibition that was put together by a group of artists who were not yet known as the Impressionists. It was in 1874. And at that exhibition, we have this painting that's on the study sheet by Claude Monet called Impression Sunrise. And it scandalized those who had an expectation that what great artists were to do was to present something that was finely detailed, that was highly finished, that had refined brushstrokes that one could not even see. And when they looked at this painting by Monet, as well as some of the other artists who were displaying at this first exhibition in 1874, they saw something that, well, you can hardly tell what these shapes and forms are on this painting. And the brushstrokes, they're just so quickly applied, as if this person didn't labor over this painting for months at a time, which he didn't. This was a painting that he did from a window in a hotel as he looked out on the river in Le Havre. And the colors, well, these colors are certainly not what one sees in reality. And so Monet was, and the rest of the art, highly criticized for this kind of quick, sketchy type work that they saw. And one of the critics who looked at it said, well, yeah, it's called an impression sunrise, and that's exactly what this is. It's not even, it's not a real painting, it's just a mere impression. And needless to say, the Monet and the rest of the artists who were displaying took that criticism as a badge of honor, saying that's exactly what we're doing. We're giving you our experience, our impression of what we saw. So in that sense, what Monet and the rest of the Impressionists were doing was not merely developing a new style for presenting an image or a scene that was before them. What they were doing was they were presenting a different way of seeing. That's what this painting really represents, a different way of seeing and hence recalling what they saw. It was momentary, it was fleeting, it was a mere fragment, and it was theirs. It was their personal experience of what they had seen. So this notion about memory then, one of the great novels about memory is In Search of Lost Time by Marcel Proust. And one of the main characters in that novel is an impressionist painter who's given the name Elstier. And Elstier in the novel shows a painting that he has done, which is quite similar to what Monet has done here. It's a painting of an ocean view, but where the sea begins and where the sky begins, or where the sea ends and the sky begins, is quite indistinguishable. It's impossible to tell where one ends and the other begins. And so here's a quote from the book. It says, Elstier is saying, what I'm presenting is what we actually see rather than what information tells us we see. And he goes on to say, we do not receive wisdom. We must discover it for ourselves after a journey through the wilderness, which no one else can make for us. He's describing, rather than what the classical artists were doing, which was taking, if you will, a message that they were then commissioned in one way or another to present to the people through their artwork. He says, we are painting not what we're instructed to paint, we're painting what we are experiencing. we are experiencing our own subjective encounter of the scene before us. So this notion about the subjectivity as a part of what one is remembering, ultimately, what cognitive scientists are now telling us is much more in line with what the Impressionists were trying to tell us, which is that our brains do not work like recording devices. Our brains work as constructors of what we've seen, what we've heard, what we've read. And that construction process includes not merely what we saw or what we heard or what we read, but also beliefs that we have, biases that we have. Our own subjectivity gets built into the process of what we call memory. So I'd like to share with you a couple of quotes from a couple of actually Christian ministers who have an interesting insight into the difference between what they would consider to be a Western sense of what it means to remember and the Israelite, the Hebrew, the biblical sense of what it means to remember. So here is from a minister, Michael Horton. He wrote a book called The Christian Faith. In our Western, that is Greek, intellectual heritage, remembering means recollecting, recalling to mind something that is no longer a present reality. Nothing could be further from a Jewish conception. In the Jewish liturgy, remembering means participating here and now in certain defining events in the past and also in the future. And this from another minister, Dustin Crow. In the Bible, a call to remember is a vibrant, powerful, and participatory concept where we recalibrate our lives according to what's being remembered. One of the great Jewish sages about memory was Rabbi Nachman, the great-grandson of the founder of Hasidic Judaism. And he said, it's important, first of all, he said, not only is remembering good, he says, it's also important to forget. Because he says, sometimes we carry with us problems and experiences that weigh us down, that get us in the way of encountering the beauty of what is available to us. He says, so there's sometimes it's good to forget. He also said, though, it's important to cultivate a good memory. And for him, he said, and what is a good memory? It means keeping the world to come constantly in the forefront of your mind, never forgetting it. And what Rabbi Nachman means about the world to come is not what happens after death. He's referring to a spiritual state in the present, one which each one of us can attain by being aware of the intrinsic value of the world and everyone in it, including ourselves. So a good memory, is not one that's capable of recalling every event in one's life. It's an awareness of that which keeps us on the path to fulfillment of the divine promise of wholeness, purpose, and peace. So I go back to our Torah portion. And I notice that Ki Teitzei, which in our portion here is used to say when you go out into the field and you have a battle. But the notion of Ki Teitzei, that word Ki Teitzei is important because that verb of going out, a Yetzirah, is the word that's used for the whole exodus from Egypt. So we have, in addition to our opening verse, when you go out, Ki Teitzei, the end of our portion. Remember what Amalek did to you on your way of going out from Egypt. Seitechem mimitzrayim. Seitechem from the same word as Teitzei. And then it takes us to the very beginning of this journey out of Egypt from the book of Exodus. You shall tell your children, it is because of what God did for me in my going out from Egypt. B'tzeiti mi Mitzrayim, the same word, seiti. But in that case, seiti is in the singular of first person. It's because of what God did for me in my going out. So there's a hint there that this going out is not just a national journey, it's also a personal one. And like the Impressionists, each one of us has a scene to see, a way of describing it, a way of experiencing it. And we need to be in touch with that. We can't just let someone else write the story for us. We have to write our part of the story as well. Here is the way Rabbi Mendel Schneerson describes what this whole notion of Yetziat Mitzrayim is about. Yetziat Mitzrayim is the endeavor to rise above all that inhibits the soul, whether imposed by an outside force or by the physical, psychological, or spiritual limitations imposed by habit and nature. So to experience at this moment, as the Israelites are getting ready to cross over, there is much to remember, and there's some things that are deeply needed to be blotted out from one's memory, to be forgotten, if one's going to be fulfilled and healthy and happy within the land of promise. And the way to do that is to explore one's own participation in this journey and not just leave it up to someone else to write the story for us. So here we are, as our artist in Marcel Proust's novel says, that here we are, we do not receive wisdom. We must discover it for ourselves after a journey through the wilderness, which no one else can make for us. So with that, I'd love to know what you saw in this Parshat Ki Teitzei when you go out. If you raise your hand, I'd love to call upon you. Richard.
Just one thing has always troubled me about this. I shouldn't say trouble really because I have my own answer. But as you say, it starts out with all this stuff we got to remember, basically be ethical to be other people, but all those pieces there that somebody recites, and Moses remembered. And then you come to the very end, and as you say, we got to forget something. But what it says is, you shall blot out the memory of Amalek from under heaven. Do not forget. So it leads me to your last statement, which is, no, we do have to remember all the bad that's out here to balance our compassion for that and understanding of it. Don't forget that, but block out that it's disabling you from using the other foot to walk with.
Okay. Thank you, Richard. Okay. And let me call upon Rose.
Yeah, well, I think, Richard, what you said was interesting, but I think the other verses to kind of answer that are the verses about levirate marriage. And the whole point is to keep the name of the dead husband alive in Israel. So there's this whole thing about we want to blot out the name of Amalek, and you need to remember why. So if you ever hesitate to address when injustice, I like to think about it saying Amalek is like injustice, the ultimate injustice, because he picks on weak people, the people who aren't able to defend themselves. A lot of this Parsha really is talking about how to treat even the disadvantaged people, economically disadvantaged, socially disadvantaged, treat them with respect and dignity and treat them right. Amalek is the representative
of everything that's anti that, of taking advantage, and they point this out, the reason is because he doesn't fight fair. He just picks on the weak. So that ethos, you need to deep six it or 86 it or whatever, get rid of it. And anytime you're in a new situation, you need to be on the lookout and remember, if you see this kind of activity, that these people or nations are dangerous and you can't allow them to go on. So from that sense, you're supposed to remember things that you should be doing. Even in this new situation, even in this new land, it doesn't change what's right and what your obligations to justice are. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you, Rose. Let me call upon Catherine.
Yes, thank you, Rabbi. Just two thoughts. One is that what this parshat for me was about was one's ability to keep commitments to people, not just to be, so they say, honest toward the end of chapter 25, but that in order for this society to function, you need to keep a commitment to whoever you choose as a partner, to the poor, right? And pay the wages, make sure you pay them so that you can keep your commitment. So I sort of read that into this chapter, this parsha. And in terms of the painting, I was struck by, and also Monet's words, is along with memory, what we get is the whole idea of subjectivity, right? That what matters is not trying to strive for objectivity, but for what we perceive and how we can put that out into the world. So that runs parallel to what you were saying about kind of being proactive about constructing.
Yeah. So what all of you who have been making comments so far are helping clarify for me is this notion about Amalek, which is presented here as the iconic example of traumatic event that happened to the Israelite people along the march. And so, how does one deal with trauma in one's life? Do you let someone say to you, well, here's exactly what happened. I have it written down. Amalek came down from the hilltop, attacked the people, did terrible, and slaughtered the old and the young, and you witnessed it, and you're having this. That's why it affected you this way. Or is the kind of remembering and forgetting that Richard was hinting at have to do with there is a way in which sometimes we live with a traumatic event that drives our life, that rules over our life. And so there must be a way to, through some form of a therapeutic practice, to re-encounter that trauma and then retell it to oneself that puts oneself in a place of power rather than being a victim. And so maybe this notion about to forget an experience that one has had that has disabled one from being fully present and fully in control of one's life, and to remember it in some kind of way that allows you to leave that that weight, that baggage, that oppressiveness that has caused you to, that has caused a stunting of your own growth, to retell it in such a way that one can now leave it behind as any kind of grasp over one's growth and happiness. So maybe that's what the blot out and don't forget, something like that. So thank you all for that. Other thoughts or comments? Robert, please.
Thank you again for a lovely evening. You know, what really struck me between the way of life in those days and the Impressionists was what a blessing we have to have the freedom we have of thought. So, you know, there was a time, not even 200 years, I believe, where individuals were expected to follow in their father's footsteps, very rigid kind of life, if you will, colored within the lines. And now we live in an age where creativity is valued and independent thinking is valued. And it's the opposite of what most generations, at least my understanding, have lived with. We just have immense freedom to be creative in our work, whether a person's an engineer or homemaker, whatever it is, and have it honored. And we even seek that out from individuals. And one is encouraged, even children, you don't have to stay within the lines, color any way you want. So, I mean, it's just a gift we have at this time that I think it's good for me to reflect just how fortunate I am to live at this time.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. That's beautiful, Robert.
Yeah.
And I'm just inspired to think about Passover Seder, which is, of course, where this whole notion about you shall tell your children it's because of what God did for me and my going out. So a lot of us, we may go to synagogue or church or somewhere where there is a knowledgeable person, a spiritual guide even, uh, who is delivering a lesson to us, who is explaining this material to us. And that's important. But where we see the spark, where everyone livens up, I experience anyway, is around the Passover Seder. And that's because instead of being delivered a lesson, people participate in the creation of the lesson, of that story of the Exodus from Egypt. And that I think is both captured by this verse from Exodus, tell your children because of what God did for me in my going out. And it's what the Impressionist painters were trying to tell us, that it's important to express one's subjective experience of what one sees, and to make the subjectivity part of the artwork. And so to participate with a community of people who are constructing their own understandings of this body of work we call Torah, which evolves over time. What I remember from it is different now than it was 20 years ago, from 40 years ago. What I'm seeing in the material is different than it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 40 years ago, or as a child. And in that sense, I'm participating in the construction of what this story is all about. And that's what makes it, as our minister friends here say, that's what makes it vibrant and powerful and something that's being lived in this moment rather than something that is over with and done and on a wall in a museum to be stared at. This is a living text in the sense that it has yet to be and never will be finalized in its meaning. But it is powerful as a projector of our personal and collective movement forward to making this world a place where the divine can dwell and all can become increasingly, as our Constitution says, a more perfect union. Justice, justice shall you pursue. And we pursue it in the process of developing ourselves and developing our communities where we dwell. I'm so glad to be a part of such a community with all of you. I look forward to our next gathering. Be well, everyone. Thank you so much. God bless.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you.